So here's a brief overview of what my program looks like. So it can translate a Spanish phrase such as yo soy, which means I am, into English, I am. It allows you to play this phrase in English using either the Bing Translator function or from the local dictionary. So if we use Bing Translator, for example, when I play this,
I am.
it says I am. If we play it from the local dictionary,
I
am.
it plays I am. Furthermore, if you click on either of these words, such as am, it brings up the definition of am and allows you to play the word.
Am.
Okay, all of this information is being stored in a dictionary file. This is where the definitions are being stored. So the definition for the word am, definition's here, and the definition for the word I is here. And so I'm storing all of the definitions for all of my words in this XML file. The actual XML file I will be submitting for my assignment will be this one here, which contains 2,000 words altogether. The sounds that I get come in the sound file. I have the I sound file and the am sound file, which I read if this radio button is selected. Just like with the dictionary, the actual sounds that I'll provide with my assignment are these sounds here. So this is the UML diagram for my program, and it's also where I will demonstrate the 3 design patterns that I use for this project. The big class in the middle, this is my main form. This is the form that shows up at the beginning of the program. And it's also where the user enters in a Spanish phrase and clicks the translate button to get an English phrase, and also where they can click the play button to play the English phrase. If the user clicks on one of the words that was translated into English, form word will show up that displays the definition of the word that was clicked. And it also has a play button that the user can use to hear what that word sounds like. If the user in the main frame, they click a word that does not have a definition, then form add shows up instead, which has a text box that allows the user to enter a definition for this word. The translator class, this is the class that's in charge of getting the Spanish phrase that was entered in form main and then translating it into English and returning the English string. It also has a play translation function down here that's in charge of playing the whole phrase that was translated using the Bing speak function. The dictionary class, this is the class that's in charge of working with the dictionary XML file as well as the sounds folder. So the dictionary class will look for a definition for a word in the dictionary XML file. If it can't find that, it also has add functions. One of them looks online for the word, and the other is when it's given a word and a definition, such as if someone used the form add to give a definition to a given word. These last 3 classes, these are handlers that are in charge of getting a definition for a given word. So the local handler, it's in charge of looking locally, such as looking in the dictionary XML file for the definition of a given word. And then the internet handler is in charge of looking online for the definition of a given word. So having said that, the 3 design patterns that I'm using the singleton, I'm using the chain of responsibility, and I'm using the mediator pattern. The singleton is used in the translator class. The reason I decided to use a singleton is because in order to use the Bing API, it requires authorization so that they know that you have an account and such. And if I was to use multiple instances of Translator, I would have to authorize my account every time I wanted to translate something. It's much better to have one instance of Translator, authorize that one instance once, and then I can use the translate and play translation functions anytime that I want. The chain of responsibility is used up here with these handlers. So each of these concrete handlers, they have a successor, and then you can set the successor. And the way that I use it, at least, is I set the local handler successor to the internet handler. So if my program cannot find a definition locally with the local handler, it will go to the internet handler and say, try to find the definition of the word online. The last class, or the last design pattern I should say, that I use is the mediator pattern. And that you can kind of see here, you can see over here. The idea that form main is kind of the central hub through which all communication must be done through. So none of these other classes communicate with each other. All they do is they communicate with form main, and then form main will communicate with other classes depending on what is required at the time. Okay, so now let's look a little deeper into what my program is actually doing. So before we do anything, let's just recap that my dictionary.xml only contains the word definition for I and am. Similarly, in the sounds folder, we just have I and am. So now let's type in soy un estudiante de postgrado, which means I am a graduate student. Okay, when we do that, we see that it also has a graduate and student. Now, if we go to the sound file, we see a graduate and student involved. Also in the dictionary.xml file, we'll see that there's three new words: a, graduate, and student. So the way that this works is, and I will demonstrate this with the UML diagram. First, the translator function translates the Spanish phrase into English, and it returns it as a string. And then the form main, in the get labels function, it breaks it down into words. And then for each word, include the I am a graduate student, each of those words, the form main sends the word to the handle of the local handler. In the form main, there's a local handler and an internet handler, where the internet handler is the successor for a local handler. And what these do, like I mentioned before, is they get the definition of the word. Now, I don't actually need the definition, but I do this in order to get the definition from the internet using this if it's needed. So the words I and am, when they go to the local handler, those the local handler returns the definition and doesn't use the internet handler at all. However, if the local handler does not find the words in the local dictionary in here, which would be the case for the words a, graduate, and student, then it sends those words to the internet handler. And the internet handler tells form main to ask the dictionary to add that word to the dictionary XML file that's stored locally using the add string function. And also, the dictionary, when it adds a string, it also tries to add the sound file as well. So that's an example for this, when it was able to find all the words from the internet. Let's take a look at an example where it does not find all of the words from the internet. So this sentence is involved liking Tetris on Saturday afternoons and my friend Bryce being better than me at Tetris. So it says, I like to play Tetris on Saturday afternoons. I'm good at the game, but my friend Bryce is better. He is incredible in Tetris. Okay, the first thing you'll probably notice is some of these words are red. One of the functions of my program is that green labeled words are words that have both a definition and a sound. So if you click on, say, play, gives you a definition, and if you say play, it'll play the sound.
Play.
Words that are red, on the other hand, are words that do not have a definition or a sound file stored locally. And then there's a third color, which is yellow. Yellow means that there is a definition stored locally, but not a sound stored locally. And so for these words, since they're red, if we look at the UML again, what's happening is the local handler tried to find the definition in the local XML file by asking form main to look for that word, which calls the dictionary to see if it contains the string. And if local handler doesn't find it, just like last time, it asks the internet handler to tell form main to tell the dictionary to try to find the word on the internet. However, some proper nouns such as Tetris and Bryce are not contained in the dictionary online, and in that case this doesn't return a definition either. And when that's the case, that's when form main, when it's creating the labels here, it makes them red. And so now if we click on, say, Tetris, what shows up is the Tetris dialog box where you can enter a definition for Tetris. So we might say it's a game that involves falling blocks. Okay, now before I click enter, I'd like to point out that the dictionary.xml file does not include a definition for Tetris, just the last one is in. Okay, so when you say OK, let's also bring up this. Right now these are red. When you say OK, now these are yellow because Tetris is now in the dictionary.xml file. If we open this now, the bottom we see now it has Tetris, and it has a definition, a game that involves falling blocks. And if we say play, well, Tetris doesn't have a sound file, and so it says sound file for Tetris cannot be found. Would you like to specify a location? Let's say no for the time being. And close this. Let's close some of these things so it's easier to see. So now this is our thing. And if we try playing, seeing how this plays, we should hear beeps from these two words and this word because there's no sound file for them.
I like to play.
On Saturday
Afternoons, I'm
good
at
the game, but my friend is better.
he
Is incredible in.
Okay, and that beep sound is coming from this wave file right here. Okay. The reason I give you an option between these two is exactly because of this reason. Bing Translator tends to be better at playing sentences. It kind of guesses what the word sounds like even if it doesn't know the definition of the word. So if I play it with the Bing Translator, it sounds much better. It also involves using commas and periods for pauses.
I like to play Tetris on Saturday afternoons. I'm good at the game, but my friend Bryce is better. He is incredible in Tetris.
Okay, so now let's actually add a wave file for Tetris. So if we click on this, it's a game that involves blocks, and if we say play, now we can specify a location. So in my music directory I have a my Bryce and my Tetris sounds. If we go to my sounds right now, you'll notice that there's no Bryce file. If we choose Bryce or choose Tetris, okay. I guess I messed that up. I think I chose the wrong file, but it should be funny anyway. So I chose that. Now if we click on this, Bryce. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Bryce. So I chose the wrong wave file. Oh well, let's just roll with it and see what happens. So now if we can do the same thing for Bryce, I can say it's my best friend. And like before I click OK, if I go to dictionary.xml, the last one should be Tetris. When I say OK, close this and open it again. Now it's now it has Bryce in there as my best friend. When I click on play, Let me specify a location. We'll choose Tetris this time. Now Bryce says Tetris. Tetris. And Tetris says Bryce. Bryce. And then they're all green, so then you can play it.
I like to play
Bryce.
On Saturday.
afternoons. I'm
Good.
at
The game, but my friend
Tetris.
is better.
he
Is incredible in.
Bryce. Okay, so that's a demonstration of the functionality of my program. I hope you enjoyed it.